How is it going, guys? And welcome back to week 7 of the Pokemon Premier League against Slyro and the Pittsburgh Pyroars. Now, this week I'm going to be trying something completely different. Normally I have my layout on the sides with the opponent's team and my team. This week I'm going to try it without, because I'd like to see if it makes it less distracting or more distracting. So please let me know. I'm going to ask you to put down in the comments, do you want this with layout or without layout? Because I genuinely don't mind either way. If you want me to keep the layout, I'll keep it because I like it. I personally like the layout, but if it makes it too distracting, it's perfectly fine, and I'll just go without, and it would save me a lot of time. So there's benefits to either side. So let me know what you think about the layout, if you want it and if you don't. So anyway, let's get into this match. Now, as usual, I'm going to leave my team down in the description of what all the sets I brought and all the stuff that I had. Now, just as a little overview, I'm bringing Physically Defensive Victini with Toxic, Trick Room, Air Protect, and Psyshock. Scarf Curum with, you know, the stuff. Specially Defensive Spritzy with Trick Room. Physically Offensive Brave Marowak. Physically Defensive Zapdos, and Brave Slow Physically Offensive Life Orb Hitmonchan. Now, all of the stuff down below is down below, and yeah. This week, Sly has decided to bring Arcanine, Bronzong, Hitmontop, Roserade, Mega Altaria, and Hydreigon. Now, I'm just going to get straight into this match because I've been really scared about this one for a while, and I reckon I could take Sly this week, so let's see how it went. Slyro is issuing a challenge, and he decides, after I send out my Victini, he decides to lead off with his Hydreigon. Now, he was very scared that I was going to be Scarf with Dazzling Gleam, so he decides to make the obvious prediction, the obvious play, and switch straight out into Hipster Entei, his Arcanine, which I knew he thought could take on my Victini. His Arcanine was only here because it could take on my Victini, but I revealed a Protect. And here I go straight for a Toxic, as he thinks that I'm some kind of physically offensive Victini. I go for the Toxic, and he tries to Will-O-Wisp me thinking I'm going to switch out. So instantly, I've got a Toxic off, and the one Mon I was desperate to get a Toxic on, which was this Entei. And I go for a Psyshock right here, just to see how much damage this will do, and it does a fair chunk. And he goes for a Flare Blitz just to judge what kind of set I am, to judge how much damage it would do, because he knew that no matter what attack I chose to do, it wouldn't do much to him. But his Flare Blitz is going to do a decent chunk to me. But it does nothing because I'm physically defensive. So he knows by now that I'm a defensive Victini. And he knows that this thing is literally built to take on his Arcanine. The one thing he had to take on my Victini is now taking on the thing that is now being taken on by the Victini. It's a strange situation. But he gets a Morning Sun to get his health back up, as I think I went for another Toxic just in case he decided to switch out into something. So, yeah, he's back up a decent amount of health. I'm back up at pretty much full, and he's going to slowly get whittled down by the Toxic. He's on a timer. He has to switch out soon. So he withdraws, risking the fact that I could have V-Create as my last move because I haven't revealed the Trick Room yet. He goes into Metaton, and he takes a Psyshock to the face, which does pretty much absolutely nothing because it's a freaking Bronzong. So Victini's now back up at full health, and I know here he's going to take the chance to get up his rocks. He's going to take the chance and get his rocks up. So he's getting his leftovers back. He's now back up at full, and I'm up at full. So the only thing that's taking damage is Arcanine. But I know I can't touch that Bronzong, so I have to switch out into something that can. I go out into Marowak, as he obviously gets up his rocks. He's going to get up those rocks, and he's not going to want to stay in next turn. I know this. I know he's not going to want to stay in next turn. And he's probably going to go out into Altaria, but I'm not risking it. If he stays in going for some kind of attack, I know I can take it, so I go for a knockoff as he switches in the Altaria, which takes the knockoff fairly decently, which kind of tells me this is probably going to be a specially offensive, bulkier Altaria. And I know that I can take any hit this Altaria wants to throw at Marowak. Any hit, even a Draco, which he does throw at me. That was the strongest move he could have possibly hit me with at this point, and I know I can take it comfortably. And as you can see, I take it with 35 health left, which leaves me free to go for an Iron Head and get Marowak's first kill of the season. It took time, but I got it. Oh my god, that was so satisfying. But now I know he can just go out into whatever he wants. He goes out into the Hipster Entei, and he's probably going to try and burn whatever comes in. So at this point, I'm left with two options. I can either go back into Barkley, take some unnecessary stealth rock damage, or I can go out into Zapdos and try and defog. And I do the latter. I go out into Zapdos, who was built to take 2 Flare Blitzes after Stealth Rock. It's built to take 2 Flare Blitzes after Stealth Rock. Bear that in mind, I am built to take 2 Flare Blitzes after Stealth Rock. Nope. Burnt. That stops. That stops right there. Plus he got a massively high damage roll, which is unfortunate. I think I EV'd it completely wrong, because that was not going to take 2 Flare Blitzes. But that burn is important, because if he didn't get the burn, I could have roosted up and stalled out this Arcanine, kept Zapdos around for later to defog and do all kinds of shenanigans. But here, I'm forced to sacrifice it, because I can't have Stealth Rocks on right now, otherwise I don't have any offensive switches, and I can't switch in Victini on this thing very fairly. So I have to go for defog there, because I'm burnt and I have no way of getting rid of it unless I bring in Spritzy, and I don't want to bring in Spritzy on an Arcanine, so I'm forced to sacrifice Zapdos to get rid of Stealth Rock to allow me to get a decent switch into this thing. So yeah, Zapdos is down, my only defogger is down, and that is a huge thing, because now if he gets up Stealth Rocks, I'm in a world of pain. They're going to put so much pressure on me. However, I go into Victini knowing that he can't touch me, and I decide to pull an offensive double out into Sands. And he reads that and goes for a Morning Sun, and basically it didn't work out. My thinking there was that if I go out into Sands and he brings in the Bronzong, trying to get Stealth Rocks up, I have momentum, I can kill it. So, unfortunately he reads that, and I go back out here into Marowak, back out from Marowak into Victini, and he goes for a Flare Blitz, which shows me that he was just willing to take out Marowak there. But this is great, because I'm getting more and more damage off on this Arcanine each time it stays in and goes for a Flare Blitz, because the poison's racking up, it's getting recoil, and slowly but surely this thing is being whittled down. So I'm in a great position right now, because he doesn't have Stealth Rocks up, and this Arcanine is taking more and more damage. It's getting bodied by my Victini, it's just being blocked and stopped, and even if he has Crunch, it's doing nothing to me. So here he decides to make the obvious switch and go back out into Metaton, because if he can get up his rocks for free now. But here I reveal the Trick Room, because he's already worked out that I can't switch in, I can't hurt this Bronzong, because I don't have the blue flare, which I was considering packing, but at the last minute I changed for Trick Room. So I decide to get my Trick Room up, just to see what happens. So I go back out, I go out into Hitmonchan here. I knew that he would probably still underspeed me, because friggin' Bronzong is incredibly slow. He gets up his Stealth Rock after putting up a Future Sight. Now, I didn't know what Future Sight did here. I knew how it worked, but I wasn't sure if it was 1 or 2 turns it was delayed by, so I go for a bulk up here, thinking I can take the Future Sight, I can go for a close combat and chomp this thing into oblivion. But I got Cold Feet here and pulled the double out into Smashing, and this was another huge thing that should not happen. Alright, he goes for a Flash Cannon. I know I can take a Flash Cannon fairly well. It gets a crit. So, unfortunately, he also takes the Future Sight attack, which doesn't do that much at all. It does about 36%. And I know I underspeed, but if he hadn't got the crit there, I would have used this turn to Wish Up and get myself back at a decent amount of health before eventually switching out into something else that could take it on. But no, I'm forced to sacrifice Spritzy here, which means that I don't have anything later to take on the Hydreigon, which is a bit of a shame, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I decide to go back out into Hitmonchan and go straight for a close combat, knowing I can deal a hefty chunk to him. Whatever he wants to do, I can deal a hefty chunk here. And it does about 65 to 70%. It does a lot of damage, and he goes for a Future Sight, which is a bit frustrating because I don't appreciate him going for Future Sight, because it's a stab 120 base power psychic move, and I don't have anything that wants to take that besides Victini. So I decide here that I'm just going to go for, I can't remember what I went for here, but he switches out into the Arcanine. I know he switches out into Arcanine, and he gets the Intimidate, and I go for a close combat on this Arcanine. And it takes it down to like red health, which is pretty much dead. Not quite dead, but pretty much dead. I knew I just had a free turn there to do whatever I wanted. And yeah, pretty much I'm sorted. So he's going to get leftovers back, and he's not going to quite die to the Toxic this turn, because next turn he's dead, but this turn he's not. So yeah, I know that this Arcanine is pretty much gone. It's done nothing so far all game. It's done nothing apart from take down my Zapdos with a burn, and I've effectively dealt with it. So he brings in the Hitmontop, knowing that he's got another Intimidate on me and I can't do anything to him. I pull a double out here, going into my Kyurem, which was simply because I knew the Future Sight was coming and I needed something that was going to be able to take the hit fairly well. And the only things I had on my team that were able to take a hit from a Future Sight were Victini, which would have took it fairly well, and Kyurem was the more offensive switch because it could have also taken a Flare Blitz as well and it could threaten things out with Draco. Now I decide there just to go switch out into Marowak after taking the Future Sight because I know that this thing's just going to want to close combat me and it's perfectly fine. And he brings in the Bronzong as I switch into Marowak. Now, at this point, I know that I'm actually underspeeding this Bronzong under Trick Room. I'm actually underspeeding it, but he doesn't know that at this point. He doesn't know that his Bronzong outspeeds me. So he switches in the Entei just to be fodder for Marowak. He gets the Intimidate on me. It doesn't matter. I'm still going to take it out with a knockoff, which I do. Knockoff just kills that Arcanine, and that's a second kill, and the crit obviously matters. No, that's the second kill of the game for Marowak, who's doing amazingly, by the way. Getting 2 kills, killing a Mega Altaria, killing an Arcanine, 2 kills for it. Now he brings in the Nando, and I decide just to sacrifice off Marowak here because it's got 2 kills, and it didn't really warrant much more use because he had Mach Punch. I assumed he had Mach Punch still around, and I kind of didn't really need it because it couldn't touch Hydreigon. So I decided to sacrifice it to a Dazzling Gleam, go into Victini to threaten out the Roserade, but he brings in the Hydreigon. I knew he was going to bring in the Hydreigon here, so I go for Trick Room, because now everything on my team outspeeds this thing, so I'm certain it's Scarfed. I'm certain it's Scarfed. He had to bring Scarfed, but I did all of my calcs for Life Orb. I just wanted to make sure, because if it's Life Orb, a Draco from that thing pretty much hurts everything on my team. Now I decide to go back out into Kyurem here, because Kyurem's not doing anything at the moment. Kyurem's not doing anything, so I decided to sack it off to a Draco, which does hit, which is fantastic. If it hadn't hit, I would have been able to Draco anything I wanted to on this team, and that probably would have helped out if he'd have missed, but he gets another crit, which is obviously important. No, I was going to die, but I was just sacrificing Kyurem there anyway on the off chance that he missed. But now he's at -2, so I can go into Hitmonchan and threaten him out with close combats and bulk ups and things. So he withdraws his Hydreigon, and I know at the moment I underspeed everything on his team apart from Bronzong. But he goes into Bronzong, I hit it with a Drain Punch, which takes it out and gets me back up to around full health minus Life Orb, which is absolutely fine. And that Bronzong is out of the way. That thing was a bit of a problem for me, and now that it's gone, I have a clear way to victory if I can get rid of this Hitmontop. So he brings it in, and Intimidate is going to do things and stuff to me, and I know it has close combat, and I know that's going to do a lot of damage to me, so I just decide to go into my physical wall here, Barkley the Victini, who's putting an immense amount of work here, by the way. Victini is doing an amazing job at being a Trick Room setter, and it takes this close combat like a freaking boss, like an absolute champ, and that thing is going to take less. It's going to get defense drops, and I know that a Psyshock here can take me out. But I also know he knows he's got a free switch here into Hydreigon to do whatever the hell he wants. Now, a smart player here would have gone straight back out into Hitmonchan, because I can take a Draco and whatever, and I can just fire off close combat. I'm not a clever player. I go for Toxic here, thinking that if he wants to stay in and go for Sucker Punch or something silly, I can just go for a Toxic and wear it down. Now, I know here that freaking Deltamon over here is now Toxic, and it's going to do things and stuff, but the Twisted Dimensions are gone, Trick Room has wore off, and I have nothing here that really wants to take a Draco at this point. I can't switch in at this point. I have to pretty much try and wear this thing down with Toxic and all of that jazz, and it's slowly racking up damage. So I reckon I could get this thing down to a point where I could possibly sweep with Hitmonchan if I can just get rid of that Hitmontop. I decide to stay in here and set up the Trick Room one final time for one last hurrah. I need to take out 3 Mons in 5 turns, and 3 Mons in 4 turns. So I decide here to go in for Barkley to just set up the Trick Room again, and just, you know, do things and just sacrifice itself because it's done an amazing job so far. I decide to switch out here, knowing I can take a Draco or whatever. I need to pull the hard switch very quickly into Hitmonchan. And he knows that he's now at -2, he can't touch me, and he also pulls a double switch. And he goes into Nando, because he knows that this Roserade's not doing much for him at the moment. and I know I have 4 turns to take out these 3 mons. I go for Ice Punch, and this takes out the Rose Raid, and Hitmonchan gets its first kill for me since transferring from West Chan United. I take the Life Orb damage. Now I have 3 turns to kill 2 mons. Eddie Gordo comes in, goes for Intimidate. Well, he gets the Intimidate attack, like the drop on me, so I have to go for Bulk Up here. I have to hope that he goes for Close Combat here, and he gets a defense drop. He goes for Close Combat, and then I realise I don't have enough time to kill this thing as well. I don't have enough time to actually kill this thing, so I decide the only way I can have any chance of winning is getting a crit Drain Punch. I don't get a crit Drain Punch. If I'd have got a crit Drain Punch there, I could have took out this Hitmontop, got my health back, and lived a Draco and killed it with a Close Combat. But unfortunately, he lives that Drain Punch, and the Twisted Dimensions are going to wear off this turn. He's going to get Leftovers recovery back. I'm now at 45 health, and Twisted Dimensions are gone. And he goes for a Close Combat, taking out my Hitmonchan, which is a bit frustrating for me because that was literally the only thing I had left to win. Maybe if I had Mach Punch here, I could have won, but I doubt it. So, yeah, this Hitmontop is just going to... It's just won me the match, because the only thing I have left is a Victini that's on like 12 health, 21 health, whatever, and it's just going to die to Stealth Rock. And even if I did live, I would have just lost to a Hydreigon anyway. But that's the match. A very, very narrow 2-0 loss that would have gone the other way if I'd have got a crit or he hadn't got his crits. So I'm just going to spend a bit of time talking about this match because, quite frankly, I feel like I should have won that match. And simply because I know I made a couple of mistakes. Probably going for Bulk Up on the Bronzong wasn't a clever move. But the only major mistake I've probably made was that. Because I think going into Zapdos on Arcanine and him getting the burn was a massive, massive thing. Because if he hadn't got the burn, I could have roosted up, defogged away, and he had nothing really that threatened it. Nothing on his team threatened my Zapdos. I could have taken any attack that anything on his team wanted to do at that point. His Altaria was gone, he had nothing there that could have dealt any kind of damage to Zapdos, and Zapdos pretty much would have won that match for me there, because it takes hits from everything. It outspeeds up all of his threats. It outsped the Roserade, it outsped, not the Hydreigon, but it could have taken a Draco and boosted up. It could have taken Close Combats and Sucker Punches, it could have taken Future Sights, it could even have taken Flare Blitzes because of the way I EV'd it. But him getting a burn on it meant that I had to either defog or roost up and hope that I could go into Spritzy later on and aromatherapy it, and it just wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it because it would have just meant playing around and him taking chip damage on me. So I had to defog there just to get the rocks away and give me a bit of offensive pressure. And the crit on Spritzy then later was a big thing, because if I had still had Spritzy around and he hadn't been able to take me out with that last Flash Cannon, Spritzy would have been around later on to switch into the Hydreigon and wish itself up, and at that point he would have had nothing left to take on the Spritzy, because Hitmontop did nothing to it. The Hydreigon wasn't carrying Flash Cannon, and even if it was, it wouldn't have done that much at all, and I could have just wish-stalled it out because it was toxic. So, quite frankly, if he hadn't got that crit with Bronzong with the Flash Cannon, I probably could have won this game. But unfortunately, he got the crit, and he decided, he got the crit and the burn, and he pretty much decided that he was going to capitalise on that, as he should, and he played out the rest of the game fantastically because of it. So, that's 3 seasons in a row where Slyro has beaten me, but this is the only one I feel like I should have beaten him. I'll be honest, this is the only time I feel like I should have beaten him. This is the only time I feel like I've outplayed him, and this is the first week I feel like I've used this team completely, amazingly. I feel like I used the team very well this week. I prepped very well, and it's unfortunate that I've lost to a crit and a burn, but what can you do? Slyro played brilliantly, and he's a fantastic player, so I can't doubt him on that. He's been amazing all season. He's only lost to the people above him, I think. So, yeah, what can we say? We have 4 games to try and salvage this season and stay up. And next week, we begin the relegation climb. We begin the Great Escape by we will be taking down Sam and the Newcastle United. So, stay tuned for us finally getting the win. I'm joking. Nah, genuinely, I don't know. It's going to be a fantastic game next week against Sam. He's a great guy. I've met him in person. He's a lovely man. And make sure you come back and watch that. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Or the next week, where we play Newcastle United, the undefeated leaders this season. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.